John Harbaugh finally spoke on Zach Orr after the Ravens' embarrassing loss to the Houston Texans in week number 5. We talk about what was said, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome in to the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this Monday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you so much for all the everydayers out there, first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We're 5 day a week plus more Ravens podcast, bringing you daily Ravens coverage every single weekday, plus more as well. Jam-packed episode is, again, unfortunately not a victory Monday for the Ravens as they fall to 1-4 after an embarrassing 44-10 loss to the Houston Texans in week 5. And honestly, it did not feel that close. John Harbaugh, he finally spoke on Zach Orr. There's a lot of controversy, definitely among the fan base, about what should happen to Zach Orr and this Ravens defense in general. And in the second part of the show, we'll talk about some concerning messages the Baltimore Ravens veterans sent about the team, about the coaching staff, and we'll talk about some of the other messaging as well. Then finally, we'll dive into a little bit of a Ravens and Texans recap from week number 5 and just where the Ravens need to go from here. Appreciate everybody again for being here. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Well, that was certainly a game that we saw yesterday. Just utter shock still, I guess, from the Ravens being beat down that badly by, for the Texans offense. Well, it really wasn't a great unit coming in. The defense, on the other hand, was a pretty big strength of theirs, but you just kind of look at it being 44-10. And again, like I said at the top there, just didn't really even feel that close. Felt just really bad. Try to find what the Ravens do well in this loss whenever the Ravens lose. I really don't have anything, which is crazy. And so obviously the defense is a big topic of conversation. This defensive unit is just terrible right now. They have a ton of injuries, but I don't use injuries as an excuse. I use them as context, and we can admit that in context, yes, not having Kyle Hamilton and some of the other guys they're missing right now, obviously not having to get in for the season, those are big losses for sure. I'm not saying that they're not, but we see teams across the league dealing with injuries here. It's not just the Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. They beat the Los Angeles Rams with everybody, it's you and me playing wide receiver out there for them. So, again, I'm not using that as an excuse. John Harbaugh was straight up asked about Zach Orr and the defensive unit after the game and really didn't hold back on his thoughts on the process of what he thinks needs to be done. And honestly, for him, what he thinks the next steps are with Zach Orr and the defensive staff. So straight up, he was asked, do you have to consider changes with defensive coordinator Zach Orr or the defensive staff? And John Harbaugh said, quote, "You try to do the most productive things, and I do not think that that's the answer. We have to go to work is what we need to do. We need to stick together is what we need to do. We need to find ourselves, and that has to do with the coaches and players working together and together." This to me is like straight up Harbaugh's just like, no, like that's what he thinks is not the answer, is moving on from Zach Orr. Any changes with Zach Orr? I think in a game like that, with what we saw yesterday, someone has to answer for that type of performance, especially when it happens essentially for your defensive unit for your first 5 games of the season. The Ravens have allowed 37 plus points in 4 of their first 5 games this year. And, we knew the Ravens had a tough schedule to start, but this is essentially the second straight year that Zach Orr's defensive units have started really slow. Obviously, last year they changed some things around personnel-wise, and that ended up working. But to me, I think that you do have to make a change here. And honestly, I was definitely kind of leaning that way after week 4, after the Kansas City game, even though I don't think John Harbaugh deserves any more shields. And I've said that. I think that eventually John Harbaugh is going to have to answer for it if it continues to go this way. We've talked about that a ton here. But again, a pretty firm statement from John Harbaugh on, hey, we want to try to do this thing together. It definitely kind of felt like just a kind of generic answer. Oh, we have to go to work is what we need to do. Yeah, I should have been doing that for the last handful of weeks. I mean, sticking together and all that. Sure, I mean, that's great, but also doesn't feel like everyone's on the same page right now. We'll get to some of the concerning messages that, some of the Ravens veterans had about the team in general. Like, it doesn't seem like the team is sticking together right now. Like, yes, that's true. Like, you'd have to stick together. But right now, you get absolutely beat down at home in front of your home fans. You got the boos, and apparently there were fire Harbaugh chants. And, we heard Harbaugh have boos they were raining down on Harbaugh Ravens fans after the game. Like, it is not good right now. It is not good. And defensively, I mean, look, this Ravens team is on pace to break all types of historic records in a bad way defensively. And for a Texans team, just for some added context, that came into this game, it's the second worst third down offense in the league. It is the second worst red zone offense in the league. You allowed them to dominate you there. Nico Collins is a beast. CJ Stroud, I think, is better than people give him credit for. But that offensive line is terrible, and you get 2 sacks, one on a free rush and another one on a play where Tavius Robinson gets home free and then Stroud evades it, and then you get Trenton Simpson. Like, again, there should have been more pressure, the play calling itself, and we're not even talking about the offense yet, and, we'll get to that. But I just wanted to focus defensively because, again, like, John Harbaugh could have kind of said, oh, well, we're going to evaluate and see. And I know that would have sparked even more like, oh, man, what's going to happen here? But Harbaugh shutting the door pretty quickly on any changes. But that's the thing is, like, I think when you start the year this way, you need to make a change. And again, how big is that change? What is that change? I mean, I don't know. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And it feels like that's what the Ravens are doing, where it just kind of feels like they're complacent right now. They're content with what's going on. I know, like, the players in that building are not, and like everybody in that building is not content with like losing and all that. But also actions speak louder than words. And this is a team that is 5 games into the season. They're 1-4 right now. It's a really bad spot to be in. But if they're going to make a change, they should do it now, because you don't want to make the change when it's too late. And all of a sudden you're like 1-5 entering the bye, and you're like, oh, well, now we're even in a deeper hole. What could happen potentially is the Ravens are waiting for the bye week to fire Zach Orr, because that gives them time. It's a break in the action for them and gives them time to install new things or change things around. Maybe that's what's happening here. And John Harbaugh's kind of just saying, yeah, we got to sit together. We got to do this. But then in the back of his mind, he's like, okay, once the bye week is, we're going to do this. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question or not, but I just don't want to see them get complacent, because that, to me, for years I've been saying on this show, like, you absolutely cannot do that. The Texans had 1 punt in the entire game. It's the second straight week the Ravens defense has only forced 1 punt. The Ravens defense has been on the field for 20 possessions, 2 punts forced in that span. 2 of them were just the game ended, so those don't really count. And no turnovers in that span either. Again, last time the Ravens defense forced a turnover against a team not named the Browns, December 25th, 2024, Christmas, against the Houston Texans. It's all the way bad. Houston got 27 first downs in this game compared to Baltimore's 12. They outgained the Ravens by over 200 yards of total offense. I mentioned the third down efficiency for them. Just all across the board bad. And again, it didn't feel like there was fight in this team. It didn't feel like there was heart. And guys just looked confused in a sense out there. I thought the play calling was not good from Zach Orr as well, where they need to stop doing this thing where Zach Orr, like, they need to play up on these guys receiver wise. Like, they're giving such soft cushions. Their defense is built on the bend don't break mentality of like, hey, we're going to not get beat deep. We're not going to allow those big plays behind us. So we're going to keep everything in front of us. And then when the bend don't break kicks in, okay, well, they'll kick a field goal or punt, and that's how we'll win. That's essentially the Ravens' mindset. This Ravens defense is breaking on every single possession. It's mistakes, it's penalties, it's everything imaginable. And for a team with Super Bowl expectations, yeah, I think you do have to make a move and make a change. Someone has to answer for it. Is it Zach Orr? I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that's where a lot of people in the fan base are going. I personally think that that should be the move, but we'll have to wait and see what the Ravens do. Feels like there's not something coming this week. Maybe it does. Maybe something happens, and John Harbaugh is just kind of saying stuff to say stuff, and he says one thing, but the organization is thinking another thing. I don't know the answer to that question, but you get embarrassed like that. Like, you never want to see anybody lose their job, from just a human perspective, but something needs to be done here, because you cannot keep doing this over and over again. We're 5 weeks into the season, almost a month and a half in, and they've shown that even when healthy, this defense is not good. And you're not going to win, because what is it? Offenses win games, but defenses win championships. This is not a championship team right now. And this year is, in my opinion, Super Bowl or bust. So I think everybody in the organization is feeling the pressure right now, as they should be, because the product on the field right now, it's absolutely unacceptable. So again, John Harbaugh speaking on Zach Orr, being pretty firm, speaks out about that and says, hey, you know what? He says, I don't think that's the way that things should be. And he believes that it's just about sticking together. So that's John Harbaugh's messaging with that. But there are plenty of other messages about the Ravens and what happened in that game, particularly from the veterans. And some of the messaging was pretty concerning based off of everything we're seeing on the field out there from Baltimore right now. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll talk about that. So much more coming up on Locked On Ravens. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And sports are something that bring neighborhoods together, whether it's gathering for game day rituals, celebrating with the best wings in town, or just being a part of a fan base that calls the place home. And in Baltimore, you got Fed Hill, Be More Licks. Fed Hill is incredible during game days. I mean, everybody's supporting the Ravens, wearing their purple, and you can really tell the community that is in Fed Hill. So Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Zay Flowers. He and Cooper Rush, they connected for a long pass down the sideline that resulted in setting up the Ravens' only touchdown of the game against the Texans in week number 5. It was a rough game overall for the Ravens, but they just got to keep pushing, keep moving everything forward, because that's all they can do right now. They're 1-4, but you got to try to get back into this thing. The schedule opens up, and plays like Zay had, that big play, that's what the Ravens need to keep moving this thing forward as well, for the team, for the fan base, for everybody in Baltimore. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, talking Ravens football. Fortunately, again, really tough loss for the Ravens in week number 5 to the Houston Texans. And again, appreciate everybody for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We are 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, plus more of that daily Ravens coverage. So the regular shows, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also, during game days, have Locked On Ravens watch-alongs, where we react live to every single play that the Ravens have during their games. And it's really fun to interact with the community there, even though the games themselves haven't necessarily been super fun to watch. It's fun to watch along with our community here on the show. We also have instant reaction shows after games, Locked On Ravens Squad show with myself, Kai Smile, and Sam and Joku. That's twice a week, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. and after games. We got bonus episodes, the whole 9 yards. So we are your one-stop shop for Baltimore Ravens content and coverage here. Be sure to like and subscribe, video form and audio form. Tell a friend, tell a family member as well. We got to keep talking about this Ravens team, though. We got to keep talking about what they need to do and what's going on, because there were some concerning messages, in my opinion, from a couple of the Ravens veterans in terms of like where everybody is, what the messaging is. And so Kyle Van Noy, I want to start with his messaging. I think his tone when asked about the messaging from the coaching staff. So he was asked, hey, are the messages from the coaching staff, are they not getting through to the players? And he said, quote, that's probably a question that's above my pay grade, probably. I think that's a Harbaugh or a ZO question, to be honest. I think their messaging is fine, and we have to be the group to take that, go out and do the simple things right, the fundamentals, easy, basic stuff. And I want to give, like, if you haven't seen the clip of Kyle Van Noy talking about it, he looks very, or seems very unsure of what to say. Now, again, only Kyle can clear that up. But, whether he was like truly, I don't want to, something's not right here and I don't want to say it, so I'm going to try to like cover, or if he was just trying to get a message across and couldn't find the right words and everything is truly fine. I don't know. But like he like hesitated right before he said fine and was like, oh, well, like that messaging to me, and even the fact that he refused to answer the question essentially and being like, I don't really want to answer that question. That's above my pay grade. Not that he didn't want to answer it, but he clearly said like, hey, it's above my pay grade. I don't want to put words in his mouth, obviously. So I think that like that's a little concerning to be like, oh, well, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. It's not good. Like the vibes right now are not good at all. And look, I don't blame any of these guys if the messaging has gotten stale or, it's not the right message at this point. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, look at the product on the field, but just look at how the players are carrying themselves, how, everybody looks dejected and tired and upset. And yeah, you're not going to be like jumping around on the sideline when you're winning or anything. And I know there are those like clips of Lamar laughing on the sideline, which he himself cleared up and said that, hey, don't spread all that I'm laughing, because we're losing or anything like that. That's essentially what Lamar's messaging was. He didn't want that out there because it wasn't true. And Lamar's not that type of guy anyway. So, I mean, I believe him when he says that. I think he DM'd someone about that because those clips are going, oh, they're going, look, Lamar laughing during a loss. He doesn't care. And then Lamar's like, no, don't put that out there, which I agree with. I don't think that's who Lamar is. That's not who he is. So you just have to kind of look at this as like, the vibes are awful. Like, again, I said this, I think that in my opinion, the way the Ravens are playing right now, this is the worst Ravens team of all time. The worst Ravens team of all time. And the bowler years are there, and other years are there, but with the way the vibes are, with the way the games have been, like, it's just all awful right now. And in an AFC that's pretty wide open, in my opinion, like, I think the Ravens, they had a big opportunity to get the 1 seed here. And while, again, technically they still can, I think that's so far out. We can't even talk playoffs with this team right now because there are so many things wrong with them at this point, from play calling to messaging. But like, it just feels like the beginning of the end. And I know the season's technically not over, right? They still have to play the games. Their schedule opens up in the whole 9 yards, but it just kind of feels like, you had a Super Bowl roster, in my opinion. I'll still stand on that. The roster on paper, yes, despite some of the flaws that it had, like, I thought it was the best roster in the NFL on paper, but it's why you play the game. It's why you play the game, and things just aren't working, especially defensively when, we can kind of talk about, well, who's there to rally the troops? Who's there to get everybody going? And feels like there's no one right now. Like, it looks like the head coach isn't getting through to him at points. And, what's the defensive meeting rooms look like? Even offensively, what does that look like? And there are a lot of things you can point to, but we can talk X's and O's, we can talk about results and stats and all that. But if this is kind of the vibe and the body language and everything that's going on with the team right now, they're not going to win anything. They're not. And they know that too. Like, they understand that. They know that. There was another answer from Jaire Alexander, which was really interesting. And this kind of got a lot of run on social media, where Jaire Alexander essentially indicated that Malaki Starks was helping with the defense's communication when he was on the field. And obviously Teddy Buchanan, he was kind of the guy that, with Roquan out and Kyle Hamilton out, he was kind of going to be the leader of that defense, green dot and everything. And apparently, No one's really sure if the Ravens moved the green dot from Teddy Buchanan to Starks mid-game, but Alexander seemed to think that Malaki was in charge. And I don't know if people thought Teddy was in charge or if they moved him around, but the messaging for a lot of fans, it looks like, and that's what I'm kind of gathering from social media, we're just like, wait, do these guys not even know who's supposed to be putting guys in what positions? And look, that's the thing. You're relying on two rookies to essentially set up your defense, and whether they were doing it together or they moved the green dot or whatever, it's a tough spot to be in. I'm not saying that it's not, it's so easy to be in this spot and they should be winning. I mean, yes, they should be winning even with the injuries, but they do have to do it in a different way, and the fact that they're not winning, they keep losing, and the injuries keep piling up. The results on the field look like they do. I mean, look, no one's using that as an excuse. I know the Ravens certainly aren't. They're certainly not, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't. This team needs to be better than they are. And right now, it just feels like a whole lot of bad vibes across everything that's going on. And they need to fix it quickly because, they're at a pretty big crossroad here where they could enter their bye. There's a real shot that they could enter their bye 1-5. And if that happens, again, kind of like I said in the first part of the show, I think they do use that bye to make some changes that might include Zach Orr. Not that I know anything. I'm just saying that's my speculation. I'm not tied to anything. I don't know anything. I just want to. That's what I would assume would happen at that point. But you don't want to get it to that point. But at the same time, you kind of have to feel like, because again, what happened in 2012? The Ravens, they were struggling and, kind of finished the season not on a good note before they won the Super Bowl. And what do? They fired their offensive coordinator. They said, this isn't good enough for us. They obviously promoted Jim Caldwell, and, the rest is history. They made some changes on the offensive line, and they won the Super Bowl. Now, the personnel is so depleted right now, you can't really make a ton of personnel changes, but maybe you consider starting Tyler Huntley next week. I don't know. I don't think Cooper was bad. We'll get to that in the final part of the show. I don't think Cooper was bad, but the Ravens clearly missed some of the athletic ability that Lamar Jackson brings to the table, both with his arm and with his legs in this one. I'd still personally start Cooper, but I have seen people call for Huntley. Cooper made a couple of bad throws, but that's something we can get into, and we will in the final part of the show. So coming up, what I've been doing a bit more of a Ravens and Texans recap. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming up on Locked On Ravens. First of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And for the Ravens, they need this win against the Rams in week number 6. Now, the Rams coming to Baltimore are heavy road favorites right now on FanDuel, 7.5 point favorites over on FanDuel. So, hey, maybe you like the Ravens as the home underdog. It's possible. Hey, maybe you do like the Rams as the road favorite. Either way, you got to get over to FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher here with you, diving into Ravens football. Tough loss to Houston. In fact, it was a lot more than tough. It was embarrassing to Houston, that loss. Week number 5, 44-10, which is absolutely unreal. They fall to 1-4. They need a win in the worst way against the Los Angeles Rams in week number 6. Appreciate everybody again for being here. Hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form. 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Whether you are an audio listener or a video watcher, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We just hit 15,000 subscribers a few days ago on the YouTube side of things, and in audio form, that community continues to grow each and every single day. So even through the tough Ravens times, we still got you covered 5 days per week. I've never missed an episode of this show. That was episode 1,611 consecutively for me. Now for the Ravens, seems like they've given up 1,611 points so far this season through 5 weeks. Of course, that's not actually the case, but feels pretty close. Now the stats haven't officially come out at the time I'm recording this, so I don't have the updated Ravens defensive metrics in front of me right now. But I mean, this Ravens defense is historic levels of not good right now. And, you kind of wonder just like what's next at this point. Like, yes, the injuries, it's tough. They had a bunch of guys out, 6 Pro Bowlers, a lot of money on the sidelines. But as I mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of other teams deal with that. And so I want to talk, we talked a lot about John Harbaugh and, Zach Orr and the whole defensive thing. But I do want to talk about the offense. Again, I don't think Cooper Rush played necessarily poorly, all things considered, because I think the offensive line was awful. I mean, I've heard the Ravens have a huge offensive line problem. Like it is huge. Tyler Linderbaum hasn't been Tyler Linderbaum to start the season. The guard play has been terrible. Roger Rosengarten's been bad. Ronnie Stanley's been hurt and bad. Like everybody just has not been good. Joe Noteboom, obviously, he's not someone that you want to fill in on a regular basis. It's just tough all the way around right now on the offensive line. They were getting no push in this game against Houston, to the tune of Derrick Henry only getting 15 carries for 33 yards in this game. And I kind of talked about it a little earlier where without Lamar in there, you lose the threat. And so you can essentially stack the box against Derrick. But it felt like Todd Monken was tipping his plays because whenever Derrick was on the field, I was like, oh, all right, this is probably a run here, because all other running backs not named Derrick Henry only got 4 carries the whole game. Keaton Mitchell got 3 and Justice Hill got 1. So whenever Keaton or Justice was on the field, it was up, okay, this is going to be some level of a pass, or, Hill's going to stay back in pass block. Like it just felt like we knew what was coming whenever a certain player was on the field. And, that's not what you want. The Ravens also, I thought, ran too many screens in this game. I understand wanting to keep the defense moving and getting the O-line out into space and putting the ball in some of your playmakers' hands when you have a backup in Cooper Rush who's not necessarily going to push the ball down the field. But even still, like it clearly wasn't working, and they kept going back to it, especially on like 3rd and 9 situations. And it was just, it was not good. I mean, Rush went 14-20 for 179 yards. He had 3 interceptions, 2 of which were his fault, 1 of which was not his fault. The Mark Andrews bobble up in the air, and that's just an encapsulation of the team, in my opinion. Just, the ball gets bobbled up in the air for like 10 seconds. So it was really like 3 seconds. And then the Texans player comes down with it. Like, yeah, of course, like of course that happens to the Ravens. But other than that, I mean, Zay had his big catch for 56 yards, 5 for 72 for him. DeAndre Hopkins had a really nice play. Cooper Rush actually put that ball right over, I believe it was Lassiter's head. So that was a really nice catch and run earlier in the game. But, it's crazy. Rashod Bateman, honestly, has been pretty disappointing this year, unfortunately, for the Ravens. No catches on 3 targets. Bateman on the year through 5 games only has 10 catches for 112 yards and a score. A lot of people were expecting a lot more from him. Teddy Buchanan led the team with 15 tackles. Trenton Simpson and Malaki Starks each had 10. Tampa had 6, and then the rest 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Again, just all the way around, felt like every play the Texans were getting chunk play after chunk play. Texans averaged 7.6 yards per pass and 5.1 yards per rush. Yards per play wise, just as an offense in general, the Ravens, their offense averaged 5.2. The Texans, their offense averaged 6.3. So almost a yard per play more. 10 drives for each, but as I mentioned, the Texans outgained the Ravens by over 200 yards. They had 26 more plays than the Ravens did in time of possession, which I think at this point, it is what it is time possession-wise. 36 minutes and 33 seconds compared to 23-27 Houston versus Baltimore. Baltimore had 9 penalties in this game. That was also something. It's just like the execution is one thing on the field, in terms of tackling and throwing the ball accurately and all that, but it's also just penalties. Like, this is still a sloppy team. There was a play on the CJ Stroud just took the ball to the outside, ran for 20 or 30 yards, and nobody wanted to tackle him. And they're still missing tackles. Just it's very fundamentally unsound, very undisciplined football. And the Ravens have essentially become the laughingstock of the league after being a Super Bowl contender in the offseason. It took a month for the Ravens to go from like this perennial Super Bowl contender to a team that everybody's laughing at and being, oh man, my team might be bad, but I'm glad we're not that team. Like that's what other fan bases are thinking about the Ravens right now. You see the frustration on the field. There was a clip of Zay Flowers walking towards John Harbaugh, like all this stuff. I mean, defensively, there's not a chance. The result of the Ravens' defensive possessions in Week 5 versus Houston: touchdown, field goal, touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, field goal, punt, end of game. I mean, they need to do a lot of soul searching. They're allowing punts. The Ravens defense is forcing punts one time per game, and it's coming with like 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Jalen Noel, Texans rookie receiver, scored a touchdown. He celebrated with the Ray Lewis squirrel dance. You're just getting punked in your own stadium. And it's happening. Like Detroit came in and out physical them. They go to Kansas City, get beat up on. Then you come home, play Houston, you get beat up on. And I just, Texans played with the Ravens the entire game, the entire game. And, it was just no fight. And that's the worst thing you can see. No fight in a team. And that's kind of what we saw over the course of this game. And honestly, what encapsulates it, not just the Andrews play, but the sequence on special teams where there was a disaster penalty on Keon Martin for going out of bounds. And Jordan Stout had a really good punt on that play to flip the field. The Ravens were pinned back near their own end zone. The punt ended up flipping the field, but then there was a penalty on Keon Martin. The next Jordan Stout punt went 35 yards and gave the ball back to the Texans at like the Ravens 41, or maybe it was a Texans 41, but it was essentially like at midfield. And those are the types of things that like make or break games sometimes. Like you're trying to fight in the game, you get some level of a break, and all of a sudden it doesn't go your way. So that's kind of the thing with the Ravens right now, right? It's, hey, are you a team that struggles on offense? Like, are you you're not playing up to your potential? Hey, just come on down to Baltimore. The Ravens defense will fix you right up. That's what people see when they look at that Ravens defense right now. When they look at the Ravens team right now, they see a team that is depleted, deflated, and lacks identity. They need to fix all of that immediately, or else things are going to get even worse than they are. And things are pretty bad right now. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. We'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens. We'll analyze more about this Ravens and Texans loss, what changes the Ravens could make, and where they need to go from here. So be sure to stay tuned. Hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.